Shalom, shalom, everybody. This is Israel Wake Up. This is our Wednesday night class, Bible class, 25th of November, 2020. Okay, got a moment of silence for the Lord of Hosts and for all that we see Him doing, both in heaven and on the earth, orchestrating our deliverance from these lands of our oppressors. Okay, and we're gonna do a little prayer, then go into current events, and I'm gonna read Psalms 14 and Psalms 15, break it down. Okay, so I'm gonna do a moment of silence. Okay. O Lord, I pray unto the Lord my God. We make our confessions, O Lord, the great and dreadful God, keeping covenant and mercy to them that love thee and them that keep thy commandments. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of face, as it is this day, to the men of Judah, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven us, because of our trespass, that we have trespassed against thee. As it is written in the laws of Moses, all this evil is come upon us in the land of our captivity, here in the Americas, Caribbean, Great Britain, and Africa. O Lord, according to all thy righteousness, I beseech thee, let thine anger and thy fury be turned away from thy city Jerusalem and thy people and thy holy mountain. O Lord, hear this prayer and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary and thy people for the Lord's sake. O Lord, open thine eyes and incline thine ears to hear and behold our condition. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do. Defer not for thine own sake, O my Lord, for my people, for thy people and your land need you so desperately at this hour. Peace be unto you. Okay, so
Hey, hallelujah.
that's gonna take us into to our current event. Anybody got any current event?
I see that maybe Trump is going to just give it up. I was hearing they was getting his house ready in Florida. So
Right,
yeah. Did you
right.
hear about that?
Yeah, and then he also pardoned that guy Michael Flynn.
Really?
Yeah, he pardoned Michael Flynn. He kept they were showing him coming out of prison. He looked like a bag of bones. You know, he was catching hell up in there. Looked like
Right.
yeah. So he's evidently they didn't talk to him into it. He got a plan of what he gonna do after he get out. I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm thinking he gonna keep a strong arm over the Republican Party and then try to run 2024.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm. I don't know if that one gonna happen though. I
yeah,
mean, he can run, but you know,
yeah.
yeah.
Right. Shalom.
Wow,
Hello.
shalom.
So what? So that's your new name? What's that? YAWO.
Yeah, Yawa is born
Oh,
on
yeah.
Thursday.
What's that?
I mean born on Thursday. That's what it
That's what
means.
that means.
Uh-huh.
That's Indian.
No, it's Eve.
Okay, yeah. Somebody else is asking me about that. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Hmm.
But what you was saying, Michelle?
No, I was saying that he can run again in 2024, but I don't think he gonna get put back in there.
Oh yeah, but he gotta hold that power. You know that hold he got on Republican Party for them 4 years. I don't see it happening because he's going down. I think he's going downhill once he get out. Once he get out of that White House, you got
Right.
yeah, you got a bunch of people that want him gone, all the way gone. They just ain't saying they wasn't saying nothing because he was the president and he had so much influence. Yeah. So with that being said, I'm gonna read Psalms 14 and Psalm 15 because since they short songs, I'm gonna read read both of them and then I'll break it down, break each one of them down. It says, Psalm 14, the foolishness of man. The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. The Lord looketh down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there were any that did understand and seek God. They are all gone aside. They are all together become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread and call not upon the Lord. There, there were they in great fear, for God is in the generation of the righteous. Ye have shamed the counsel of the poor, because the Lord is his refuge. Ah, that is Israel's salvation of Israel will come out of Zion when the Lord bringeth back the captivity of his people. Jacob shall rejoice, and Israel shall be glad. So, like I said, the one thing in this verse right here, so many people reading it, and there's a lot more going on with it than people understand. It says, first of all, it says the foolishness of man. Then verse 1 says, Psalm 14, the fool have said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. The Lord looketh down from heaven upon the children of men. So that's what we're going to deal with, children of men. So we go to second Samuel. Second Samuel chapter, I'm starting at Second Samuel chapter 7, and I'm starting at this is when the Lord of hosts made a covenant with David. And I'm gonna start at verse 4. It says, and it came to pass that night, David had on his mind that he wanted to build the Most High house. He wanted to build the Lord of hosts a house, because he was in a house. The Lord of hosts had brought him from being a shepherd in the field, a little boy in the field, keeping sheep, to being king over Israel, and he had his own house, had built him a house. So it says, and it came, chapter 7, 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 1. It says, and it came to pass when the king sat in his house, that's David, in his house, the king's house. And you understand that who orchestrating all this is the Lord of hosts. So he done brought David to the point where he king, and he got a house made of cedar with wood all around it. So let me get it. Hold up. So what you have to understand about that, we was reading the other day when the Most High said that the kings of Israel got puffed up when they had cedar all around them and gold. This is what he's talking about. He got a house built of cedar. That's just a Hebrew phrase, but that's what he's talking about when he said, clothes itself within with cedar. That's what he's talking about. King's house. That's where the king at. And then most of them get beside themselves when they get to that point where they're the king and they got all this control and all this stuff, all this wealth. So you read it. So it says, and it came to pass when the king sat in his house, and the Lord had given him rest round about from all his enemies, that the king said to Nathan the prophet, see now, I dwelleth in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwelleth within curtains. So what you have to understand about this, when you're reading in First and Second Kings, First and Second Chronicles, it says that it's telling you, let you know, once he identified who the king is at the time, he let you know whether he did good or he did evil. And so when he said he done good, he said he done according to David. And this is your example right here. David, when he got to the place where he was king and he was in control of everything, had all the wealth, he didn't get puffed up and allow that to allow all the power and his position to overcome him. He wanted to know, well, the Lord God brought me here. Where his house at? When you see those wicked kings, that's the last thing they think about is the Lord of hosts. They didn't got beside themselves. So David is asking the question, as soon as the Most High built him a house, where his house is? So he had the desire to build him a house. And so Nathan told him, go ahead and go build him a house. Do what's in your heart. But Nathan can't do that. That ain't position. What Nathan need to do is tell David, I'm gonna go inquire the Lord to see what he say. But Nathan tells him on his own that go ahead and do all this in your heart. So verse 4, the Lord come behind him and check him. And he says, and it came to pass that night. So that was during the day. That night, Micah showed up and told Nathan that the word of the Lord came unto Nathan, saying, go and tell my servant David, thus says the Lord. See, what he told him in verse 3 was thus said Nathan. And that same thing they do in the New Testament. Thus says Matthew, thus says Paul, and thus says John and Luke. The Lord of hosts ain't said it. So he comes to tell him in verse 5, go and tell my servant David, thus said the Lord, shall thou build me a house for me to dwell in, whereas I have not dwelt in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt, even to this day, but have walked in the tent and in the tabernacle, and all the places wherein I have walked with all the children of Israel, spake I a word with any of the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to feed my people Israel, saying, why build ye me a house, a house of cedar? They go to house of cedar right there, closed in cedar trees. But anyway, so what we're dealing with is, when I started out reading this in Psalms 14 was, he said that he looked at the children of men and he found none. And he said that they are foolish. Well, we found out that Japhet means a foolish people. And so we see right here when we dealing with David, it says in verse 6, where I have dwelled I have not dwelled in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel. See that? So we just over in Psalms 14, it says the children of men. That's two different type of people. So the children of men is not Israelites. So he sees right here on two different occasions. He says in verse 6, whereas I have dwelt in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt, even to this day, but I walked in a tent and in the tabernacle and all the places wherein I have walked with the children of Israel. Totally different group of people than the ones that's in Psalms 14. Now let's show you. Let's go back into another place. I'm in Genesis. Genesis chapter. Let me get it. 6. Genesis chapter 6, right quick. It says in chapter 6, verse 1. It came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born in them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men. See that? That's these people in Psalms 14. He said he looked among them, these children of men. He looked among them, and there was no man righteous there. He got righteous folks in Israel, but he looked among these people right here. He didn't find no righteousness. He said they foolish. So let's go back to Psalm 14. It's a whole another story unfolding in there. When you understand this, he says, Psalms 14, verse 2, the Lord looked down from heaven upon the children of men, Japhet, right? To see if there were any that did understand and seek God. No, we ain't see none. It says, they are all gone astray. They are all together become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. And so this is the reason he's saying, don't let your sons marry their daughters. Don't let your daughters marry their sons. 4, have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge. See that? Satan was a liar from the beginning. And he had Cain. Cain is a product of Satan. He's a liar from the beginning. These children of men is offspring from Satan. So he says, have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people. See that? That's how we know this ain't them. He says, we just read up here in 2, the children of I mean, we read over in 2 Samuel, the children of Israel. And he tell you right here in verse 4, have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge who eat up my people as they eat bread. Two different type of people. See, they're killing the Israelites. They're killing them right now today in the streets. So he says, and call not upon the Lord. There were they in the great fear. There were they in great fear. For God is in the generation of righteousness. Yea, ye have shamed the counsel of the poor, because the Lord is his refuge. Oh, that the salvation of Israel will come out of Zion. When the Lord bringeth back the captivity of his people, Jacob shall rejoice, and Israel shall be glad. So you see how he changed. He's looking over at the children of Israel. I mean, the children of men, they wicked as hell, and he end the psalm up with turning the captivity of the Israelites and bringing them back. Turn the captivity from where? They caught up with the children of Israel, children of men. They got them oppressed. So the understanding is a whole other understanding in this psalm when you rightly divide what's going on and you get the contents, what's really going on with the contents. So with that being said, any comments?
I think in verse 1 it says it all when it say the fool
Right.
hath. That says it all right there. Because
Right.
like you said, we know Japhet was foolish.
Right. That's what he means. What his name is. Right.
Okay.
Is that something?
Yes.
Right. And then he said he's looking for one, and he can't find them. He can't even find one.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah. So, but like I say, with a second, when you do a double take on that, you see something else going on in that psalm rather than what you initially perceived. Okay.
Yes.
Any more comments?
Yeah. Quick question. Why does it says in number 7, when the Lord bringeth back the captivity? That makes me think someone was free, but then they're going back into captivity.
No. That's what I was saying about. Go to Jeremiah right quick. Hold that. We in Psalms 14, but go to Jeremiah. Let me get it right quick. Jeremiah 30.
Okay. Got it.
You got it?
Yes.
Okay. Let me find it. Yeah. 7. 30 and 7 says, Atlas, for that day is great, so that none is likened. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but I shall save him out of it. So that's the same as turning back to captivity. It's just a Hebrew idiom, the way they speak. So when he say turn back to captivity, they in captivity, and he turning it, he cutting it off, like he did with the 70 years. They was in Babylon in the midst of a captivity. He came and cut the captivity out. He turned it and got and saved it out of it.
Okay, got it.
That's what that means.
Yeah,
Same with Egypt.
Okay, I get it now.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got anything? Okay. I'm in Psalm 15, and it's the title in that is, "Who shall dwell in thy holy mountain?" Let me read that again. Who shall dwell in thy holy mountain? So let's look at that. Let me break that down right quick. I'm in Isaiah. Let's make this plain. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 18. I'm going to start at verse 17. 8, Isaiah 8 and 17. And I will wait, this Isaiah talking, I will wait upon the Lord that hideth his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord have given me. So this Jeremiah talking to him and his children, that the Lord have given me for signs and wonders in Israel, from the Lord of hosts. We see who the Lord is, the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth at Mount Zion. So the Lord of hosts, Yahweh is up in the heavens of heaven. Michael dwelleth on Mount Zion. Just like the rest of those angels, those elves, those strong ones, they came down. The 200 came down on Mount Hermon. All of them coming down on these mountains. Zeus, he dwells on Mount Olympus. So that's why the giants was going up in these mountains, in these high places, worshiping, because that's where their fathers is at. These fallen angels up on in these high places on these mountains. So we see right here, it's the El that's over Israel, Michael El, and he dwelleth at Mount Zion. So we're gonna go back to the Psalm 15. Who shall dwell in thy holy mountain? So we see now the mountain is Mount Zion, and the mountain belongs to the Lord of hosts. So the question is, who shall dwell with the Lord of hosts on his holy mountain, Mount Zion? So now I'm start reading. Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill, Mount Zion? He that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness and speaketh the truth in his heart. He that backbiteth not with his tongue, nor doeth evil to his neighbor, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor, in whose eyes a vile person is condemned, but he honoreth them that fear the Lord. He that ascribeth to his own heart and changeth not. He that putteth not out his money to usury, nor taketh reward against the innocent. He that doeth these things shall never be moved. So the question is answered, the righteous man, the one that keep the Most High's law, statutes, and his judgment, and his testimony, is the one that's going to dwell with him on Mount Zion. Israelites. Okay. Anybody got anything? Okay, everybody good? All right. So what I'm gonna do right now, I got this video. I came across it this morning, and I thought it was profound because of what we just found out about this city of return that they're getting ready to build on the other side of Ghana and all that. This stuff is seeping out of the YouTube. We starting to find it out. It's coming out. So I thought I'd play this. I thought I'd play some of this and we'll talk about it a bit. So it's the name of it. If you want to check it out, I don't know if some of the people here maybe saw some of it, but it's pertaining to when all the turmoil was going on with George Floyd, when all the protesting was going on. So a group of people got together. These people, bunch of celebrities and all that, and they saying that they don't want that intensity that's in the world right now pertaining to Black Americans being killed in the streets, and specifically the guy Aubrey, Breonna Taylor, and especially George Floyd. They want to keep that level of intensity and protest there to they want to bring about reparations, and they want to do away with so-called white privilege and racism and all that. They want it done away with. They don't want to back off of it. They want to keep the intensity right where it's at. So we're gonna start. I'm gonna play parts of it, and in segments and talk about it.
I can't breathe. George Floyd's dying words have rightfully shaken up America and forced those blinded to the senseless killing of African Americans by law enforcement to open their eyes to the horrors and injustice of institutional systemic racism. What has been clear in the past few weeks is that we are not going to watch silently. And that is why Bear Witness, Take Action was created. Tonight is an important conversation, one that must continue long after this special, a nationwide gathering of creators, activists, experts, and celebrities using their powerful voices to raise awareness of this ongoing American tragedy, to benefit racial justice efforts, and to better understand this unprecedented moment of grief and protest. Among the topics we will focus on are the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, and the long American history of criminalizing us and devaluing our lives. We will also talk about how technology has enabled us to bear witness to police brutality, the idea that white silence equals violence, and the responsibility of white privilege. And most importantly, what does it mean to achieve racial justice? Social media has given power to this movement in a way that the televised images of Birmingham in the 1960s empowered an earlier civil rights movement. Simply put, it has enabled us to bear witness. It has emboldened and empowered us to take action.
Good evening. I'm Kiki Palmer.
Peace, I'm Common.
Bear Witness, Take Action will address the challenging issues we're facing through dialogue, videos, and music.
Tonight, we'll be hearing from a wide array of voices as we write a new story for America. We will give context and explore and explain how we have arrived at this point in time and in history about the painful journey from 1619 to 2020. We hold ourselves and those in power accountable. As James Baldwin said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.
Ahmaud wasn't killed because he was doing a crime. Why would he have been targeted if it wasn't his right?
It's because they're my son. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. How do you know what happened if somebody kicked in the door and shot my girlfriend?
How's we supposed to feel protected by the same people out there harming us?
Please. Please, I can't breathe. Please, man. You can see police here now firing tear gas into the crowd.
Peaceful protests grew to huge numbers by the late afternoon. Protesters are calling for criminal charges.
This is my first protest. If the younger generation doesn't help, who will?
I really want my children to be able to live their lives in the way that every other child wants to live their life.
You have people in here that need your help. March beside us. Show us that you're here for us. No justice! No justice!
Former officers are all in custody this morning on charges of aiding and abetting murder.
Change is not going to just happen on its own. We are the ones that need to make the change.
The Equal Justice Initiative challenges racial and economic injustice, provides legal representation to prisoners who may have been wrongly convicted of crimes, and protects basic human rights for the most vulnerable people in American society. It works to end mass incarceration and excessive punishment, stop the prosecution of children as adults, aid the mentally ill in the criminal justice system, and confront the history of racial inequality in America. If you'd like to donate to help this important organization carry out its critical mission, you can click on the blue button to give to EJI.
And now, let's take a look at a statement and message from the founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative, the subject of the award-winning film, Just Mercy, Attorney Brian Stevenson.
Hi, my name is Brian Stevenson, and I'm the founder and executive director.
Yeah, this guy right here is over the memorial that they built over in Birmingham. It's got these hanging. I can't think of the name of it, but it's got all these people they got lynched. They got a monument of them hanging from the ceiling. It's got rows and rows of them. This guy right here is the curator.
The Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. I'm also the author of Just Mercy. This is a critical moment in our nation's history. There is a need for reckoning with our history of racial inequality and racial injustice that is dramatically on display in our streets. We are a nation that is not free. We have been corrupted, polluted by our long history of racial injustice. There are things we haven't talked about that we need to talk about. We are a post-genocide society. When Native people came to this continent, we killed them by the millions through famine and war and disease, but we didn't call it genocide. We said those Native people are savages, and we used that rhetoric to create this ideology of white supremacy. It allowed us to enslave Black people for 2.5 centuries. And the great evil of American slavery wasn't the involuntary servitude, it wasn't the bondage, it was this fiction that Black people aren't as good as white people, that Black people are less deserving, less evolved, less capable. And that ideology of white supremacy survived the Civil War. I've often argued that slavery doesn't end in 1865, it just evolves. We were promised freedom and the right to vote, but what we received was terror and violence and lynching. For nearly a century, Black people were pulled out of their homes, they were beaten, they were hanged, they were drowned, they were menaced and traumatized. That terrorism went uncorrected. It would be the police sometimes that would step away and allow the mobs to pull Black people out of the jail, and where they would then literally lynch them on the courthouse lawn. In the 1950s and 60s, courageous Black people challenged this legacy of Jim Crow and segregation, put on their Sunday best to protest nonviolently, and they would pray and they would fight and they would march, and they'd be on their knees sometimes and still get battered and brutalized by police officers. The laws changed, but that narrative persisted. And even today, there is a presumption of dangerousness and guilt that gets assigned to Black and brown people. And you can be an actor, you can be a musician, you can be a teacher, you can be a clergy member, you can be an engineer. It doesn't matter how hard you work or how much money you acquire. You will go places if you're Black in this country, and you'll have to navigate these presumptions of dangerousness and guilt. I've gotten old enough to tell you that it's exhausting. Things need to change. We need an era of truth and justice in America. We need to commit ourselves to being honest about our past, to reckoning with it. In South Africa, there was a period of truth and reconciliation. In Rwanda, in Germany, there's been truth and justice. In Germany, there are no Adolf Hitler statues. In this country, the American South is littered with the iconography of the Confederacy. Truth and justice is sequential. You can't have truth and reconciliation. You can't have truth and reparation. You can't have truth and restoration at the same time. These things are sequential. You have to tell the truth before you get to the restoration, before you get to the reconciliation. I'm excited because in this moment, we have an opportunity to do more, to do better. I believe there's something better waiting for us in America. I think there's something that feels more like freedom, feels more like equality, feels more like justice waiting for us. But to get there, we're going to have to commit to reckoning with our history, to telling the truth about our past, to engaging in important dialogue and conversations. I'm excited that you are having some of those conversations. You are part of this effort. I want to thank you for that and invite you all to come and see us in Montgomery, but more than that, to invite you to continue being part of this process to change America, to lift up truth and justice.
Okay. Anybody got any comments so far? Question?
Sort of a question and a comment with him saying to help continue this change in America. Right. I know that a lot has been changed in America, but it is not going to be the way it should be for us. I just don't think it's gonna, happen here. And then, they're saying with the donations and things like that, like, I just think that is pointless because things are not going to change for us here. They call us thugs and, things that we do when they are the thugs.
Right.
Like he said, snatching us out of our homes, shooting us for no reason, setting our homes on fire. Right. So I'm just not really feeling it.
Right. Exactly. Right, and that's because of the Most High and open your eyes up to a lot of things, and you ain't not in the dark no more. Yeah. Anybody else?
I'm gonna say correct on that one.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah. So one thing that was starting to glaring out at everybody that's paying attention is, like I said, the book that was written, his story. You come to find out that it's a Lord of hosts delivered us from Babylon, and the Lord of hosts delivered us from Egypt, and he ain't nowhere in the plane. They ain't got him in the plane, because nobody know who he is, and that's the reason why so much drama going on around the situation. Because of the Redeemer that's come down from heaven, he ain't even in the picture. They ain't got a clue who he is. They trying to orchestrate something and don't have the author of the situation. He ain't even included. And that's what the crazy part coming in at. And that's what's on being manifested right now. He's coming on the scene. That's why he keep on saying, then you're gonna know who I am. When it's all said and done, you're gonna know who I am. Yeah. So I want a couple more things I want to bring out. This brother right here. This how you spot a gopher. He keep on saying, we killed the Indians. I ain't killed no Indians. And nobody online ain't killed no Indians. He said, we killed the Indians. We ain't killed no Indians. The white man killed the Indians. We ain't killed them. White folks did. Talking about reckoning with our past. Our past ain't got nothing to do with no killing no Indians. Yeah, he's trying to do the Christian thing and combine everybody together. When I just showed you in Psalms 14, the Most High, children of men and the children of Israel are two different people. They ain't the same people. Ham, Shem, and Japheth ain't the same people. That's the lie. That's how they didn't constructed everything, but that's three different types of people, three mannerisms of people, three different nations. But they want you to think we all here together. You don't hear the white folks talking about all the wealth they got. This is our wealth. We this is our wealth. You know what I'm saying that? But you want to come on here hollering about we killed the Indians. I ain't killed no damn Indians. Yeah. And that's the little subtle things you find out a gopher when you deal with one. Because I ain't killed no Indians. I ain't thinking about killing no Indians. So then he says, and like I said, they keep on talking about another thing he said, that he's looking forward something big for us down the road. Yeah, all the powers that be got they gophers herding us up because they want us in Africa. Yeah, it's something big coming, all right. They finna run us out of here and run us to Africa with this civil war they concocting, and with this coronavirus. There's something big coming. Yeah. So with that being said, anybody else got anything? I'm gonna play a little more and we'll talk about it. Anybody else got anything? Comment? Okay. Let's see. Okay. 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 Bear with me.
Our next panel deals with a very complex subject, but we will focus on a few top-line questions that get us to the heart of the matter. What is white privilege? How and why has that privilege been weaponized? Whose obligation is it to end a power that has been used to oppress tens of millions? To lead the discussion on the responsibility of white privilege, please welcome back Roland Martin.
Hey folks, Roland Martin here, host of Managing Editor, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's continue our conversation dealing with the issue of race in America. What is the responsibility of white privilege? My guest, Chad Smith, comedic YouTube content creator with over 800,000 subscribers and 44 million views. Also, Michael Skolnick, he is an entrepreneur, film producer, news commentator, civil rights activist, and motivational speaker. Michael doesn't have enough to do. He's the partner and co-founder of the Soze Agency. Previously, he was the president of GlobalGrind.com. And closing us out, Eddie Glaude Jr., an American academic, chair of the Department of African American Studies, and the James S. McDonald Distinguished University Professor of African American Studies at Princeton University. He's a double-sided business card, Eddie. He's also an MSNBC contributor. All right, folks, let's get right into it. Michael, I want to start with you. You're the resident white guy out now. The responsibility of white privilege. We're seeing companies responding. We're seeing politicians. Are we seeing a real response to race in America?
Well, Roland, I've certainly gotten older over the years, and I've seen a lot in this country. It is not enough for us white people just to recognize our privilege or speak of our privilege or talk about our privilege. We must act on our privilege, and we must act to dismantle the systems and the structures that hold up the 400-plus year history of racism in this country. So as an ally, I have spent the majority of my life to move from an ally to an accomplice. It's no longer good enough just to be an ally. It's no longer good enough just to say I'm going to show up for Black people. I'm going to show up when people have asked for me to show up. We also have to show up when they are not asking. We have to show up when they are not the ones in the street. When we are in our family rooms or in our dining room tables or having conversations at our jobs.
Eddie, you're at Princeton. They've had to deal with these issues. Woodrow Wilson, a very racist president. This has been an issue on college campuses too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way in which Princeton narrates his history, Black folk are like latecomers. We are the recipients of charity. We're not integral parts of the story of Princeton. And so part of what the students were demanding in that moment is really, how do we tell a story of Princeton that is not heralding a past, but actually is aspirational, that actually reflects the current Princeton of today and the values that animate and organize the institution. And this is really important. Usually when there's a critique of white allyship, what is being spoken of is that there is a view of racial justice that's being held and proposed by our quote-unquote white friends that's philanthropic in its orientation, that they view racial justice as a charitable enterprise, something to be given, right? And as long as we think about racial justice in that way, we're caught within the frame. So we have to have our white brothers and sisters deconstruct this idea that racial justice, that justice period, is a gift that they can give to anyone. It's not theirs to give anyone because it's not their possession.
Chaz, in Dr. King's book, Chaos or Community, Where Do We Go From Here? He literally talked about that. He said how white America was not fully prepared to even deal with the history of this country because they've never really confronted it. Isn't that the same with white privilege? That there are people who say, wait a minute, I don't have any white privilege, and they're right.
Right. White people believe that they don't have privileges because they just don't experience what we experience as minorities. I can say that myself as a man, I don't experience the same things that a lot of women do. I realize, whoa, okay, there might be something else going on here.
It's part of the problem, the phrase white privilege anyway, because when people hear that, they think, oh, privilege means, oh, rich people. And so there are people who say, I don't have any money, I'm broke, so therefore I don't have white privilege.
Yeah, I mean, also privilege also insinuates as a superiority, even in that same white privilege. It still reinforces at times, the racism, the inherent racism that, is in this country. But I also want to say, Roland, as white people, racial justice is not about us giving Black people anything. Racial justice is also about liberating ourselves from the racism that has been ingrained in us since we've been children, since we've been taught as young people in this country to believe we're better, to believe we're superior, to believe that we're smarter, to believe all these things that are not true. And so our job of recognizing that privilege inside of us is to relieve ourselves of that cancer, which is racism, to get rid of it so we can liberate our minds and be in much greater relationship with those Black brothers and sisters and Latinx brothers and sisters, AAPI brothers and sisters. So we have removed ourselves of that disease of racism, or relieved ourselves of that disease of racism, or elevated our minds to a greater level of consciousness by doing the work to recognize what we have and what that privilege does to us, which creates that cancer and creates that disease, which I don't want. And for my white brothers and sisters who are watching out, I promise you, you don't want.
And it's part of the problem, and I'm not letting anybody off the hook, but this is part of the problem that we're dealing with white folks, just like black folks, who had to learn his story and not actual history. And so it becomes, well, no, this is what I was taught. I didn't know these things. There are people who say, geez, I was an adult before I actually learned about these real issues. Isn't this also part of the problem with white privilege and what we're confronting in America right now?
You know, Roland, that's such a great question. You know, and in some ways we have to describe it as a kind of willful ignorance. And I think part of what has to happen, I think, is a kind of re-narration, a kind of retelling of who we are. That's what the 1619 Project sought to do. It brought up a whole host of questions, but it sought to re-narrate the story. When we begin to tell ourselves a different story about the evils, about the cruelty, about the joys, about the triumphs, where black folk and brown folk are not objects of charity, or we're not latecomers, or we're not being civilized, but we're co-participants in the project, then we open up space to imagine ourselves differently.
I really honestly believing and hoping that this will not just be a trend, that people are truly going to begin to see people of all colors and ethnicities and backgrounds as equals, that people will begin to have equal opportunities, that these systems that America was built on are going to begin to be stripped away, and the foundations will be rebuilt in ways that all people will have greater opportunities to push for what we know is right.
Michael, what is a white ally? What does a white ally look like, and what sort of things they should be mindful of when it comes to language and also leadership in black spaces?
So one is first to believe black people. Two, in this moment and in this movement is leaderful. Don't think you are showing up with the answer. It is leaderful with black people. It is leaderful with black women. It is leaderful with queer black people. So when you go to the march, and please go to the march, bring your children, bring your loved ones, bring your parents, show up at the demonstration, show up at the protest. But when you go, ask, where can I be of service? Not how can I help? Where can I be of service? Should I march in the back? Should I march in the side? Should I put myself in between the police and you? Where can I be of service? So first is recognizing your place in this moment. And so in those moments, speak up, stand up, say something. It is not about getting kudos or getting applause on social media or your black friends saying good job. It's by you knowing who you are as a human being and who you are as a white person and saying that I am not going to witness this and be silent. That to me is the next step of where us white people have to go beyond allyship into a level that this is, as Eddie said, this is not charity work. This is liberation work for us too. To carry that disease in your head, when you get cancer, I'll shut up, I speak too much, but when you get cancer, people tell you, I hope you get through it. I hope you have cancer. Racism is a cancer. I want it out of my system. I have to do the work to get it out of my system. And I beg, I urge any white person watching this who feels that sensation of racism inside of them to look deep inside of them and say, do they want to live a life of fear, a life of hate, a life of pain? Or do they want to live a life of joy and liberation and freedom?
Jim Baldwin makes a distinction in the evidence of things not seen between white people and people who happen to be white. And he says, I happen to love a lot of people who happen to be white, and then there's white people. And he's trying to get us the sense of what the ideology of whiteness is doing to over-determine how one understands oneself.
Michael Scully, Eddie Glod, Chad Smith. Gentlemen, we appreciate it.
Okay. Any comments on what you heard?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd have to agree. There's a lot of people who seek justice, but it's not for us. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And I'm not necessarily shifting the blame, but you know that the New Testament had a lot of us going astray, especially those and still do. A lot of us going astray, believing that what it say. Uh, if he strike you on the
Right.
right,
Exactly.
and turn to the left as well.
Right.
Yeah, and that it's meant that we all live in harmony and that we're all the same. No, we're not.
Right.
Genetically, we're not even the same.
Right.
DNA wise, we're not even the same.
Right.
So, but we've been put through, for lack of a better term here, a whitewash.
Right.
You know,
Exactly. Right.
into thinking and believing, and then that's what leads a lot of younger folks astray. They don't believe there's racism, and then
Right.
because they think that they're supposed to get along and go along, and that's the kind of stuff that brings about our sons and daughters marrying their sons and daughters.
Right. Right. They don't know the
Uh,
story.
we've been whitewashed to
Right.
believe that that's the way it's supposed to be when that's nothing but a lie.
Right. Exactly.
But and then another thing I want to say that I found interesting about that video is that if we ever think that there's going to be equality or justice or an end of racism, not here. That's never going to happen. Because the
Right.
very foundation of this place is thievery, and I heard this from one of the white professors a long time ago. Thievery, killing, murdering, lynching, what do you call it? Castration, all
Right.
that. That's what this
Right.
country was built upon: stealing land and doing the diabolical things that they've done to the Native
Right.
Americans. All
Right.
that, including naming them Indians when the man didn't land in India.
Right. Exactly. Right. They supposed to somehow jump over all that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I guess so.
wishful thinking.
Right. You right. There's something. Anybody else? Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if anybody familiar with it or not, but this lady did, I guess you can call it a journalistic, uh, editorial or whatever, of it's called the 1619 Project, and that was mentioned. That was mentioned by one of the people, one of the speakers. So to get the full gist of that, you might want to check that out. It's sort of like what Tallahassee Coach did when he did the reparations editorial that brought the reparations back up again. But and then they noticed how they kept mentioning they didn't mention since this we've been listening to this, I done heard 1619 four different times, and they had that attached um to the year of return. 1619 and the diaspora. They got this diaspora attached to that. But we know that the other Israelites. You call them children of Africa, but they Israelites. But you can see where the trickeration coming in at on what they're trying to do. They're trying to use knowing that we know now who we are, and they're using uh, uh, Old Testament stuff, Old Testament ideologies and stuff to appeal to us. They're appealing to, they knowing who they're appealing to. They know that they're appealing to Israelites. And so you say, what you talking about? Well, when you go back to Liberia, Liberia is a country over in Africa, is an African American country. They sent African Americans over there and they built Liberia. So we already have a place to go for the African Americans. Is a country already over there, Liberia. It's an African American country for former slaves. So why did they do that? It was the Israelite movement back then. And so the people that they allowed to go to Liberia to try to build Liberia was the awakened ones, the ones that was awakened. They all went over there to get them out from over here. So what's happening now wouldn't happen. they call they call themselves cutting off the the movement, but it came right back again. Now look where it's at now. It's people all over the place now know they're Israelites, especially here in America, because it's already been told us by by the Lord of hosts that He's going to say the tents of Judah first, and this Judah over here in America. It's not a coincidence. It's a method to the madness when you rightly divide the scriptures. And it come in for I'm gonna play this last little few minutes, and then let's talk about it, and then we'll close out. Okay, here we go.
To this day,
It's Deontay Wilder, the boxer.
from the womb as a black man, we was born to be tough. Lynched, whipped, burned was the thing of the past. But to this day, jail, rape, gun, how long will it last?
Being black is not a crime, but why does it seem like my people dying all the time? Over 200 years of subjugation and abuse.
Sometimes I need you to acknowledge that my pigment itself has its own story. When I was 10 years old, riding my bike down the street with my cousin, and a grown man stopped his car in the middle of the road to scream profanities at us and call us the N-word.
What do you want with my ashes? My hair, my hip bones, my breasts, my bone marrow speak to me of your barbaric fascination with my skin.
Dark like molasses, black like the night. Now that we stand, together we fight.
We're angry because we're victims of systematic bias, and what we fight against in itself is the violence. If we cry, if we scream, if we protest on the streets, it's a sign to the world that we still have a heartbeat.
Because Eric Garner, Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin, all died from, well, just being us.
I will print in your darkness. I will be big and masterful in my arrival. Swift in my exit, I will glow. Their fangs bleed blood.
There's beautiful people of all shapes and sizes and shades. And me acknowledging that they have shades and that they've had different experiences than me because of their backgrounds, it's not a bad thing.
If we really want to make this country great, we have to learn to embrace love and drive out hate.
We showed you nothing but peace. We done being quiet. To this day, to this day, to this day.
Angela Davis once said, "You have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world. And you have to do it all the time." Over half a century after the Civil Rights Movement, we continue to echo the calls for justice, the demands for freedom, and the need for concrete action as we chart the way forward. America needs a hymn. Many people in this moment are making a choice to speak, a choice to stand up, a choice to transform, and a choice to commit to break down the policies that have created this system and structure of injustice. To continue the conversation before the manifestation, leading the discussion focused on now, tomorrow, and the road ahead, the great Jemele Hill.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Jemele Hill, and this is your final panel for the night. And it's called Tomorrow, appropriately so. Where do we go from here? What does our tomorrow actually look like? How do we press forward? How do we achieve and get something out of all this momentum that has been built? With me tonight, I have a terrific panel that's going to help me sort through a lot of these issues and hopefully give us some good words that will carry us through tomorrow. I'd like to introduce first Baratunde Thurston, who is a comedian who hosts a show on Instagram, live on lockdown, also is an activist and a writer. Speaking of writer, we also have another one in our midst, Kimberly Jones, who is an activist and writer as well. And you may have seen her recently because of a commentary she did on racism that went viral, that millions of people have seen, and many have called the best breakdown of racism that they've ever seen. A very deserved compliment and not hyperbole. And finally, last but not least, we have Andrew Hawkins, a former NFL player. And before Colin Kaepernick started his protest in 2016, Andrew Hawkins called attention to the murders of Tamir Rice and also John Crawford. Thank you all for joining me this evening. I'd like to open this up to the entire panel, our very first question. And I'll start with you, Baratunde. What does a future without racism to you look like?
Oh, thank you. I'm so used to getting asked, how do you feel? And that answer is terrible. I'm exhausted and I'm angry and I'm terrible. So what does a future without racism look like? It looks prosperous. It looks like resources allocated in a just fashion. It looks like us being able to face a challenge like the climate crisis with the full capacity of our society with us, because we have literally unlocked them from behind the cages where we put too many and made them be part of the solution. Justice is delicious.
What does it look like for you, Kimberly?
I love that he started with the word prosperous, because that is exactly how I see it as well. I'm looking at a place where we are finally, being Black people who have been the architects of cool, that we're finally getting our just due, and not because someone is handing it to us, just because in its natural state it is happening organically, and that there are no roadblocks to block us from getting what we earn. And I definitely want to see more of my brothers free and able to prosper and living without fear.
It's just due. I mean, that's the word that comes to my mind. I mean, I have an 8-year-old son and 25-year-old daughters, and they're young and don't understand all these things, and everything I teach them about working hard and everything will come to them. You have to just do. It's a fair market. It's competitive. I'm an athlete. I appreciate that. And I think when you have that, the amount of creativity we have as a people, the source of energy and love and, just kind of shaping the culture in America, that's what no racism looks like.
Look, I'm older than I look, so I'm old enough to remember when similar conversations were had with Rodney King. We've seen points and flecks in our history where these conversations have started, but they've never been able to be sustained. And certainly I don't remember a conversation quite like this one. So how do we take all of what's happening now and use it in a way for advancement?
For me, a big chunk of that is going to come down to economics. A lot of what happens in our community and our culture is based on lack of economics. We have brothers who are sitting in jail right now because they can't pay a very small bond for a minimal crime, and they've been in there for over a year. So we're going to have to look at how we need to allocate the wealth in our communities and how we need to work on expanding the Black dollar in our communities so that we can attack all of the issues that are facing us, whether that's healthcare, education, the prison system. So I think that needs to be the primary focus, because beyond voting, we need to lobby. We need to make sure that we're getting these laws changed and that things are looking the way we see them as a collective.
You have seen how the NFL in particular has suddenly evolved on this issue. And it's not just really the NFL. Companies all of a sudden want to have conversations about social justice and racism and all the issues that most of us have been bringing up for years. Is that something that we can trust and use to capitulate this movement forward?
I don't think at this point it's something that we can just lean on somebody's word. I think we're past the point of people addressing this situation. I think years ago, and years as you talked about, from Rodney King to back in the 60s to even prior to that, we've been waiting for people to address something with their mouth and admit something. Now it's too late. We need action. We don't believe anything anybody says. We want to see things being put forth in action. With the NFL and every other company, what does your Black executive team look like? What does your board of directors look like? What do your hiring practices look like? Press releases are fine, but furthermore, we need action.
Now, Baratunde, one of the things that has been brought up as part of that action plan has been defunding and or dismantling the police. Now, I have an issue with the verbiage because I think it's just low-hanging fruit for people who are intent on misunderstanding. But that being said, do you think the idea of defunding the police and all the money that's being poured in these police departments, diverting it to other needier resources such as mental health services, such as public housing, how viable do you see that solution?
I think it's the only way forward. I think if we look at the history of policing in this country, it was not designed for public health and safety. It was designed for population control. And when we look at the problems that we throw at officers to try to solve, it's mental health, it's housing instability, it's hunger, it's fines and fees and tax evasions and ticketing. Do all those require an up-armored man with a gun and no accountability? I don't think so. It's actually pretty absurd what we're asking cops to do with very limited tools of essentially violence. Excessive force is kind of built right in. When you look at the number one cost for most cities in the country, it's the police department. That's absurd. So we need to leave the realm of the absurd and live in something a bit more balanced and sane. And we've got to shift those dollars to the experts and then fund teachers, fund fair wages, fund clean air and water, fund all of the things that when we lose the stress around those, we don't have to dial 911 in the first place.
I ask all of you, do you feel as if there is a clear-cut agenda that's being formed, or have we even begun to kind of unpack what that agenda looks like? Kimberly, why don't you chime in on that first?
We're talking about a 500-year system of institutionalized racism that has just morphed itself into a new look every couple decades. It's going to take the white community to be prepared to grapple with and sit in what they have done and the benefits that they continue to receive based on that history, because this is not a Black problem that they need to empathize with. This is a white problem that they need to fix. And so they need to be just as heavily involved in the repair of this system as we are.
And I don't know about you guys, but I've had more conversations with white people this week or the last week or so about race. And it is kind of exhausting because it's very clear that while they might be well-intentioned, they haven't exactly done the work to necessarily participate meaningfully. So, Hawk, I'll start with you, and I'm really curious, what have your conversations with white people, if you had any, what have they been like with what happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery?
Some of my best friends are white, and, you know, people that I consider family. But to your point, Jamil, you know, we're in the information age. Go get as much information and understanding and understand, you know, what Black people are grappling with. And it's not our responsibility to have to teach you that, because we're not the ones that put it in place. It's exhausting, to be honest. So, you know, it's going to take for white people to take the initiative and educate themselves as much as they possibly can. And then we can start having the conversation, because otherwise, to me, it comes across like you don't care enough to go find this information. And I know that's not the case with any other topic that we deal with in society.
And to all the white people who may eventually watch this or watching this, no kente cloth, please. Day, what have your conversations with white folks been like since all of this started?
I put myself in a position. I literally wrote a book called How to Be Black. I gave a TED talk about how to deconstruct racism, one headline at a time. So it will be a bit extreme for me to be like, don't ask me, because I put myself out there. Years ago, I co-hosted a podcast called About Race with a Latino woman, Raquel Cepeda, and a white man, Tanner Colby. And Tanner and I would have these conversations where I basically said to him, a lot of what we're saying right now, like, I'm tired, I've done all the teaching, read the books, go forth and prosper. And he's like, listen, Bertone, if you leave it to white people alone, we will mess this up. You know, so there is an honesty there that unguided, there's a chance for this to go off the rails. And I think there are people who position themselves as folks, it's their whole business. Pay a Black person to help you figure this out. Buy the book, you know, support the independent film, and continue to do that work.
The title of this panel is about tomorrow. I want to ask each of you, and Hawk, I'm going to pass the baton to you first. We've come to a point of the apex of this conversation. It feels like this national conversation taking place about police reform and police brutality. What can't we leave this discussion without having this settled or agreed to, in your opinion? What should be the ask?
My thing is believe Black people, believe their experiences. When we tell you that this is what we've dealt with since the beginning of time, and that every, you know, Black person that's been born in America, whether they're born affluent, whether they're born in the toughest neighborhood, whether they're born food insecure, they went to the best schools, the experiences are the same. It shouldn't take us protesting in the streets of every major city in the United States for people to sit back and say like, oh, maybe you're telling the truth, right? Believe your American citizens, the Black people and their experiences, then we can start to talk about what real change looks like.
Bertone, what do you feel is the major ask that we need to get accomplished out of this conversation?
My ask is for white America to be invested in that future with us. It is not enough, as has been said, to see this as a Black problem. I want to help out the Blacks. This is about helping out the society and creating, being as invested in an anti-racist future as we've been invested in a racist past and present. And once white America feels as invested in this, because there are gains to be made for them and their children and their grandchildren as well, it's not just charity for us, it's liberty and justice for all. Once they're on board with that, then we can unlock the keys and the codes to all of the pieces of this puzzle, but not until then. So my ask, get invested. This is all of our problem to solve.
Kimberly, what's your ask?
You got the same Google I got. And so it's now time for us to get educated on the history that we've been living in so that we don't continue to just live in it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems very simple. Like you all, I wish that we never have to have any of these conversations again. Unfortunately, history, often a predictor of the future, has taught us we probably will, but I'm just hoping it doesn't always feel like we're starting from ground zero every single time. Maybe we can be a little bit further ahead the next time that we have to have this conversation, and hopefully it doesn't come because something horrendous and tragic has happened to another Black person. Tragedy does not always have to be the facilitator for conversations like these. I want to thank everyone for listening, for watching, for learning. Make sure you use the Google, as Kimberly said, and stop asking Black people about history that you can go look at for yourself. But more importantly, stay engaged, stay involved, and as Baratunde said, stay invested. Thank you and have a good evening.
Okay. Comments? Anybody got any comments? What they heard? Okay. So with that being said, I think they pretty much defined everything from what they said. It's it's about, we at the point now, even when you start dealing with this, like people are, Black folks are around all over the place. They are on YouTube and they hearing these conversations in different places about who we are as a people and all that. So if they really wanted to find out who they are, they do their research. You can go Google it. It's no excuse no more. Like the guy was saying about our past and about what they've done and our suffering since they brought us over here. It's right there. They can go on YouTube and it's anything they want to know, they show it to them. And so it's no different than a Black person now. They've heard these conversations, whether it's on YouTube or on television or at their job, in the park. They didn't hear somebody talking about who the Black people in America are. And if they had any kind of due diligence, they would go and search that out and become more informed. Yeah. Okay. So with that being said, nobody else don't have nothing. We're gonna close out until Friday at 8 o'clock. So the name, just for everybody that want to know, it was the name of the video that we was listening to was Bear Witness. Bear Witness, take action. It's like an hour and 30-something minutes. And then they have part 2 coming out on December 5th at 3 o'clock on YouTube. It's Bear Witness, Take Action Part 2, December 5th. Okay, with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom, everybody. And
shalom.
I'll see y'all on Friday at 8 o'clock.